Nichols and Jolyon Palmer. This season is the gift that keeps on giving in my mind. We're up to round 14. It's Friday, it's qualifying, and there's only 3 points separating our championship leader at the moment, Max Verstappen, from Lewis Hamilton. It's great stuff.
Well, Hamilton couldn't take the lead of the championship tomorrow, could he? Because he's 3 points behind. He would get 3 points if he wins the race, and Verstappen didn't. But Verstappen has way more wins than Hamilton, so he wouldn't take the lead of the championship, but he could pull level. That's how important this qualifying session and the sprint is going to be over the next couple of days. Monza qualifying was always quite normal, but as soon as they brought in these big aero-dependent cars, it's always been a bit chaotic, honestly, with the slipstream and stuff. Mercedes haven't even run the soft tyre. A lot of questions coming into this next hour.
And one answer, which is from Michael Massey, our race director, who says you have to go faster than a 1 minute 43 seconds when you're going out there, because they're trying to avoid people going ultra slowly and causing loads of bunching. Jolyon Palmer, thoughts?
1 minute 43 seconds for an outlap.
That's a quick out.
That's a quicker outlap than you'd ordinarily do, I think.
Even if you're not slipstreaming and stuff, that's what. So a 1 minute 22 was the lap times in practice.
Yeah, so it's 20 seconds slower. And that's quicker than they'd have to press on quicker, because you're not in you don't want to take anything out of the tyres, obviously, so you're not leaning on the tyres at all.
What was it in Budapest when they did that? It was sort of 2 minutes or something, wasn't it? Not even with traffic or tyres or.
Normally you do trundle around on a. Even without thinking about traffic, pretty slowly to look after the tyres. 26 degrees air temperature out there. So it's a pleasant day. The tyres won't need a huge amount of warming up, but you don't want to be leaning on them on the outlaps. That's something to be aware of. They're going to have to just... obviously Michael Massey's worried about the scenario of a couple of years ago when it was chaos at the end of qualifying.
And what happens if you don't do a 1 minute 43?
This is going to be the question, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because someone's not going to do a 1 minute 43.
That's guaranteed.
Reported to the stewards, I would imagine. And then what will they do? Grid penalty. Gotta be. So we'll watch that one anyway. It's a watching brief. I'm just going to have a look what it says. It says... no, it doesn't. It doesn't actually say that they'll be reported to the stewards if they don't, but I'm sure they will be. And interestingly, Lewis Hamilton, who is in need of more championship points and wants a decent weekend, he'll be able to get the toe off Valtteri Bottas, because that's the way it flip-flops between Mercedes drivers. One of them always gets preference, and it's Lewis's turn to follow. Will that be useful to him, Jolyon, that he can get a toe from Bottas if he wants one?
Yeah, absolutely. This is the sort of circuit where a slipstream can be very important. Long straights, only a few corners. So yeah, definitely the one for slipstreaming. That is what caused the whole kerfuffle a couple of years ago, was everyone wanting a slipstream. So possibly if Bottas is going to be going out early, then I think it's what Mercedes did last year. They were the first cars out, Bottas didn't have the toe and Hamilton followed. It makes sense, doesn't it? Bottas isn't in championship contention, Hamilton's in the heat of battle. I imagine Red Bull will be doing the same with Perez and Verstappen.
There's also a lot of chit-chat about engine penalties and whether anyone decides to give themselves a new engine this weekend and therefore having to start at the back of the grid. I'm waiting to get confirmation, so I'll have to keep on waiting, because who I'm asking isn't telling me at the moment. But it's a strategy, isn't it, Jolie? And if you look at how many races there are still to come, we've got another 8 on the list if they all happen. It's very hard to make these engines last the whole of the season in the allocation of 3.
Yeah, and Red Bull are the talk of the town, aren't they? Perez took his penalty last time out because he qualified so poorly in Zandvoort. Verstappen, we think, is going to have to take one. I guess at this stage they can see where they qualify. And if Verstappen, it wasn't that quick earlier on, 4 tenths away from Hamilton, there's some quick midfielders. It's going to be the tactics of, do you take it now and have a difficult weekend, or do you just hope that you can get back to second or try and win and take on a race where maybe you're stronger, and then that gives you a better chance of charging through?
Time to sync up as the session's about to start. Jolyon Palmer and Jack Nichols.
Yep, qualifying is going to begin in 3, 2, 1, 0. Session begins, and nobody out on track straight away. Max Verstappen has taken 6 of the last 7 pole positions. Technically, as obviously you have the Silverstone anomaly in there, where he didn't exactly take pole position, wasn't quickest in qualifying, but still 5 in 7 in terms of quickest in qualifying for Verstappen. But what will Monza do? Mercedes looked very strong in free practice from the limited running that we could tell.
Yeah, medium tyres only and top the session. Looked very strong. McLaren looked strong as well. I think they've got a chance of getting right in the mix. Mercedes power unit in the McLaren, and Norris was very fast earlier on. Ferrari had a turn of pace, did run the soft tyre at the end and weren't quite as quick at the end, but in the middle of the session were strong. What about Red Bull? Perez was very quick at the first half of practice, but then faded away as Verstappen got stronger, but not strong enough to challenge the Mercedes. But so many unknowns, just 1 hour of practice and we're straight in. I prefer it like this. It's so good having so many unknowns. Normally we get to qualifying, and we're thinking, right, okay, the 5 that are probably going to go out are going to be these 5. It's harder to tell here.
Right, cars making their way out. Both of the Ferraris are out first of all, and it is Charles Leclerc at the head of the field, ahead of Carlos Sainz, to the delight of the Tifosi. And they go straight out on circuit. Swing through Curva Grande. The sound you can hear is Sainz, who gets onto the brakes now into the Roggia chicane. Tsunoda, Schumacher, Russell, Latifi heading out as well. Early from Ferrari. Did they go on the softs in free practice? I think they did.
They did indeed. Yep.
So they're happy to go out quite early here in Q1.
Yeah, they can get a few laps on the board. It's not necessarily just a 1-lap wonder. They might do 2 or 3 flying laps. The tyres may hold on for certainly a couple, and that's going out this early. They've given themselves a chance to do that. A lot of the cars, it is only the Ferraris, the Williams, the Haas's, Verstappen out, and Tsunoda out. Norris now joins the fray as well. So there's a big split. 8 or 9 drivers out on track.
15.5 minutes to go. Everybody making their way out, and well, half of the drivers are anyway. Leclerc comes out of the final corner and across the lines. I find it so difficult to judge slipstreams as well these days, because Leclerc looks miles ahead of Carlos Sainz, but he might be about the right sort of slipstream window as they get onto the brakes into the first corner at the Rettifilo.
It's about 6 seconds, I'd say. Here's the gaps look so big.
Yeah.
But because the cars are going so fast, when you look at them on the main straight, it looks huge. Maybe it's a little bit more than 6 seconds for Leclerc on this first lap. Carlos Sainz starting a lap just in front of one of the Haas cars, and Mick Schumacher, who was much closer, but the Haas would expect the Ferrari to disappear a little bit through the lap. So you can start a little bit closer. Sainz gave his teammate quite a lot of space. Yeah, it is. It's about 6 seconds between the two Ferraris. That's enough for like a bit of a distant tow, still very worthwhile, but you're not getting too much interference through the corners.
14 minutes to go. Verstappen starting his flying lap now as the Ferraris come down towards the Ascari chicane. Leclerc quickest of anyone in the middle sector. Sorry, Sainz is quicker now by over 1/10 of a second compared to his teammate. Leclerc is coming down towards the final corner. Goes past Lando Norris, who's on an out lap. And out across the line. And it's a 1:22.801 for the Ferrari of Charles Leclerc. Norris starts his flying lap behind him, and Sainz goes 3/10 quicker than Leclerc. So good first lap effort from Sainz as Mick Schumacher has come straight back into the pits then. So presumably maybe a big lockup for Schumacher or something similar. Yuki Tsunoda coming through the Roggia chicane, dipped a couple of wheels in the gravel on the outside, nothing too dramatic for him. Everybody else now has left the pits, bar Alonso and Ocon, the two Alpine drivers remaining in the pit lane. But yeah, Schumacher must have had a big lockup or something to flat spot his tyres, can be my only prediction, because his lap time was actually not too bad as well.
He did a good first sector, similar to the Ferraris, as was the Latifi that had the fastest first sector.
Is everything fine with the car? In engine braking especially?
I will come back to you. Okay, box this lap box.
Ah, trouble for Ferrari. by the sounds of it. Well, unless they're just saying they would probably pit this lap anyway. So that radio message sounds like they have a problem and they're pitting, but we'll wait and see.
On board with Norris, fastest through the first 2 sectors. As I was saying, it was Latifi who was the fastest. He's gone quicker than Leclerc. Russell's gone just 100th quicker than Latifi. The 2 Williams 4th and 5th. Tsunoda's gone 3rd. Sainz is 2nd. Verstappen to the top. But Norris now, soft tyres for everyone, is 4 tenths quicker than Verstappen. Norris could be a threat to possibly to Red Bull at the end of this qualifying hour.
Just on Mick Schumacher, he came in because he actually had his track time deleted.
But there's something, right? Something felt wrong.
Sorry, just hearing some more radio. I should have taken my headphone out. Yeah, he said he automatically would have had his next lap deleted as well because they do that. So he just came in because he already had his lap time deleted, so there was no point staying out at that time.
Turn 11. Oh, okay, so he's come out of the parabolica, known he's gone over track limits and dived straight to the pits. Okay, makes sense, because that explains why his lap time was sort of quickish as well. 11.5 minutes to go. Leclerc, as you heard on the team radio there, not happy with the engine. Hamilton through the first sector goes quickest. Norris is quickest, Verstappen is 2nd, and Hamilton's first sector is looking good as he comes through the 2nd Lesmo now and down towards the Ascari chicane.
He and Bottas both on flying laps. Bottas does the fastest middle sector of anyone, immediately beaten by Hamilton by 1/10 of a second. He's miles up on Lando Norris. This is a really fast lap for Hamilton. Got a little bit wide in the middle of Ascari, going around the outside of Verstappen on the exit, but I think he's still okay with that. Managed to keep it pinned nonetheless. So Bottas goes to the top. He's a big chunk, 8 tenths clear of Lando Norris. And now Hamilton through Parabolica, nice and easy on track limits. We'll have to watch out for that final corner as Schumacher has been pinged the first driver to do so. That could be costly for some later on. Hamilton to the top, and he's 1/4 of a second up on Bottas as well. Giovinazzi goes 3rd in the Alfa Romeo. Then Daniel Ricciardo goes 3rd. Times are tumbling. Those early ones seem pretty irrelevant right now.
Yeah, they do, don't they? 10 minutes to go. Hamilton quickest on a 20.5. 2 tenths clear of Bottas. 7 tenths clear of Ricciardo. 9 tenths clear of Gasly in 4th. A second ahead of Giovinazzi in 5th. And then you've got Norris, Perez, Stroll, Verstappen and Vettel, the rest of the top 10. And dips a few wheels in the gravel there. I'm just wondering whether those who did a run on the soft tyres at the end of free practice, like a Verstappen, are going out on those same soft tyres again. I'm not 100, but I'll try and look into that. But maybe that's an explanation as why Verstappen is a 2.5 down on Hamilton and Bottas, and then that brings them back into tyre set equilibrium with the rest of the front runners. Potentially, I don't know. I'll have a look.
Could be. He's still a good chunk down on his teammate though. Verstappen down to 9th. Perez has gone ahead of him. Perez 7th though, over a second away from Hamilton. The Mercedes have got 7 tenths back to Daniel Ricciardo in the Mercedes-powered McLaren, who's in 3rd at the moment, but 3/4 of a second down. He's just ahead of Pierre Gasly, who's gone up to 4th. Mercedes in a league of their own on these opening laps.
Yeah, everybody's out on a new soft tyre, from what I can tell, Jack, so I don't think that is the case. It's a funny one, though. You'd expect it, as you said, but no.
Mazepin has just come out straight in front of Charles Leclerc on the way out of the pit lane. 9 minutes to go. Yeah, so if that's a new tyre run for Verstappen, it's not particularly good. And I think he's had to abort this lap as well. He had done a personal best in the first sector, 3 tenths down on Hamilton, but has backed off in the middle sector. So potentially a mistake there from Verstappen at the Roggia chicane. 8 minutes and 40 seconds left on the clock. And it's Hamilton quickest, Bottas 2nd, Ricciardo 3rd, Gasly 4th, Giovinazzi 5th. Latifi's back in the pits at the moment. Schumacher leaving the pits on an out lap. Alonso, Ocon and Schumacher, the 3 drivers not to have set a lap time. We're about to find out what happened to Max Verstappen coming down into the Roggia. Oh, traffic galore.
What the f***ing... Unbelievable, man. What the f*** are they doing? All 3 of them, man.
He's not wrong though. They were, or both of the Alpines were just kind of sitting on the racing line at the Roggia.
Ocon and then Alonso. At least one of them could expect a penalty. Now Ocon's getting in trouble through Lesmo 1, then Lesmo 2. Everyone trying their best to get out of the way, but Alpines, they stayed in the garage the longest of anyone. They're yet to get a time on the board. The only ones to have done a flying lap. Now they're on their lap. They came out as Verstappen was on a flyer.
Penalty?
Now they're on a flyer as others are. I think the first of those Alpines could be in with a penalty, and I think it was Ocon.
There was an Aston Martin ahead of them, which I think was Stroll. So I think there were sort of 3 of them.
I think the first of them would be the one that's in probably the biggest danger of being the actual impeder. And I think it could be penalty territory.
7 minutes to go. Across the line comes Esteban Ocon. He goes only 12th quickest, and Fernando Alonso, who's getting the tow from his teammate, goes 8th quickest, half a second faster. Alonso in 8th position, 7 minutes to go. At the moment, eliminated would be Tsunoda, Leclerc, Kubica, Mazepin and Schumacher.
So it was probably Alonso that was the second of the Alpines, given he was following Ocon on the flying lap.
Yeah.
So maybe it'll be Alonso that gets called up to the stewards with Max Verstappen. Costly for Verstappen because he's down to 10th place right now. The Ferraris at 15th for Carlos Sainz, 17th for Leclerc. They're way out of position. Sainz starting a flying lap now. Leclerc is just leaving the garage. 6.5 minutes to go. This is where it starts to get a little bit squeaky because there's so much traffic out there as well. Drivers on fast laps and slow laps at different times. People trying to pick up a slipstream. It's carnage. Everyone trying to get out of the way of cars approaching. Oh, Leclerc's going to get a pen.
Yeah, what the hell is that? What the hell? Improving. That was a joke.
It's very, very messy this session already, and you're absolutely right there about Charles Leclerc.
So Gasly was going around the outside of about 10 cars into Ascari. Leclerc was the one that was just caught on the apex, really, and Gasly tried to had to go around the outside of him on a flying lap, was on a personal best through 2 sectors, and just couldn't carry on his lap. So there's a lot of drivers that are coming under pressure here because of traffic. Verstappen is still one of them. Max is going for another lap now, and he's going quite quickly through 2 sectors. Leclerc is on a fast lap. He's coming out of the pit lane, or is he doing a fast lap?
Charles Leclerc, well, we'll see. He's come across the line. He's still in 17th, so he must have just come out of the pits because that lap time was 6.5 minutes. So,
but with the fastest middle sector.
Well, he must be pushing to get track position or something.
Not with the fastest middle sector of anyone so far.
Interesting.
Did he go through the pit lane at the end of that Gasly lap, or is that some sort of timing glitch?
I don't know. It's a very strange one. He's still down in 17th. Carlos Sainz has just gone up into 4th position. Kubica and Mazepin incident is noted. We haven't seen that one. We've seen a Mazepin incident with the Ferraris as he came out of the pits that was also noted. Hamilton quickest, Bottas second. Verstappen across the line to go up into 3rd, ahead of the 2 Ferraris of Sainz and Leclerc. 6th is Ricciardo, 7th is Gasly, Giovinazzi, Norris, Perez, the top 10.
It was a timing glitch. That Leclerc time has just sent him up to 5th place. Yeah. So it wasn't coming out the pits. He was on a flying lap, did a really quick middle sector. For some reason, the timing system didn't pick up his first sector, but now it's picked up the whole lap and he's up to 5th. And suddenly the Ferraris can breathe a little easier. We're left with Latifi, Russell, Schumacher, Mazepin and Kubica in the bottom 5. That would probably be as you expect, but they've all got a chance to improve. And outside of that, Esteban Ocon in 15th is going to be in the most danger. Perez is only 10th, man that went out in Q1 last time. He's going to have to go again and improve.
Yeah, at the moment it's Latifi, Russell, Schumacher, Mazepin and Kubica.
But it's so difficult to drive. So difficult.
Copy, understood.
So Leclerc saying it's so difficult to drive. He was complaining about engine problems earlier, but would that make it difficult to drive?
I think he was talking about engine braking, wasn't he? So
that's true.
He's struggling with overrun. He's either locking the rears on the way in, or it's inconsistent where suddenly he's like pushing more in so he can't stop the car well enough, or it's maybe inconsistent, or it's too much rear locking probably that's causing him oversteer into all the corners. He's not done a bad lap considering how difficult it appears to be for him. He's 1/10 away from his teammate and looking relatively safe at this moment in time in 5th place. 3 minutes left on the board. Most drivers are in the pits now, apart. It's only the 2 Mercedes and the 2 Williams that are out on track. Everyone else waiting for a final flourish.
And this is the thing, with this 1 minute 43 rule, they can't almost leave the pits until 1 minute 50 on the clock.
How closely is this 1 minute 43 rule being monitored? Because,
well, I think it was the same as last year. I think they had this rule last year.
But
As,
were
Russell
the
comes out of the
Alpines,
final
for
corner.
example, were they going faster than that? Surely if you need to get out of the way of someone, you've got to go slower suddenly.
Well, yeah. And, we'll see what transpires. You get the feeling that today the order we have at the end of this session might not be the order that they start the sprint in tomorrow. At the moment, eliminated would be Vettel, Ocon, Schumacher, Mazepin and Kubica. Tsunoda's on the bubble in 15th. Latifi's just improved to go up to 13th place. Russell's gone up to 11th position. So the Aston Martins are in a bit of trouble. Yuki Tsunoda in there in 15th spot. And George Russell had quite a big slide coming through the middle part of the Ascari. We saw Hamilton wide there earlier on, and Russell, the next driver, to have a bit of a slide.
He's only 300ths ahead of Latifi, Russell, and that's with picking up the slipstream of his teammate. Oh, Kubica has been held up. That's the replay we're getting there from Mazepin into Lesmo 1. That's earlier on that the stewards have been notified about that. It's everyone now leaving the pit, so hopefully everyone's in sync and they don't have to worry too much about being out of position in terms of fast lap and slow lap of other drivers, because I don't think anyone's pushing right now.
No, correct. Flying laps are starting now, but it'll be all about getting a nice bit of track position, because I guess you don't want to be behind a too slow a car. And Russell, for example, has just slotted in behind the Red Bull of Perez and got ahead of the Aston Martins.
Copy, Mick needs to get a move on.
Understood, I'll pass it on.
Mazepin saying that Schumacher needs to get a move on, but Schumacher's got 3 cars right in front of him. A minute to go as they all come up towards the final corner at the Parabolica. And it's going to be... Oh, it's a big traffic jam. It's not horrific at the moment, but it's not ideal by any stretch of the imagination. And the thing is, the cars at the back of this queue are going to be sketchy for this 1 minute 43 rule. Norris is not in a good place here. 39 seconds to go. At the moment, it's Vettel, Ocon, Schumacher, Mazepin and Kubica that would be eliminated. Everybody is starting their final flying lap now. Vettel is the sound you can hear coming into the Rettifilo.
I think they're all going to be fine to start. Norris is towards the back of that pack, 20 seconds to go, and he's still got to get over the line. 9th place, it's a little bit squeaky for him at the moment. Alonso in 12th is just starting a lap now, 14 seconds to go. I think they're all going to be okay.
Ricciardo's a bit tight. Ricciardo is just coming down towards the Parabolica now. He's got 5 seconds left on the clock, and I think he's just going to pits. He pits Ricciardo, so he's in 6th place anyway.
Yeah, safe enough, I think, with that first run. It was a decent first run.
Right, everybody's made it across the line, and we'll keep now an eye on the lap times. Hamilton's in the pits. Bottas improved to remain 2nd quickest, but get a little closer to Hamilton. They're half a second up the road from Max Verstappen, who's under a pretty close attention from Sainz and Leclerc. Vettel is 3/10 up on Tsunoda after the middle sector. Tsunoda is the driver on the bubble in 15th, and he's not actually improving.
Tsunoda's in trouble here. Vettel's actually also in trouble. Everyone behind him is going quicker in the first half of the lap. So Tsunoda, he's having a poor middle sector as well. Ocon's not flying. They're the 3 that are in big danger at the moment.
Perez goes up to 7th. Russell and Latifi don't really improve. They remain in 12th and 14th. They're going to get shuffled well down. I think the Williams might be out of this one. Yuki Tsunoda has found a bit of time now. Kubica doesn't escape the first part of qualifying. Tsunoda is going quicker. Ocon goes across the line and up into 11th place. Latifi is out. Alonso needs to improve. Norris really desperately needs to improve. Tsunoda gets ahead of Russell. Russell and Latifi, Kubica, I think that's it now, because the Haas of Mick Schumacher gets ahead of Kubica. Mazepin isn't going to jump too high up the order. In fact, he doesn't jump anywhere up the order. And it is Russell, Latifi, Schumacher, Kubica and Mazepin, the 5 drivers eliminated from the first part of qualifying. Norris went 3rd quickest, quicker than Max Verstappen. And overall, that's probably, on balance, about the 5 you would have expected. I think Russell will be a bit disappointed that he doesn't have a bigger margin over Latifi.
And you don't expect him to go out in Q1 these days, do you?
And I don't think they didn't improve on their second runs. Neither of the Williams on their second lap improved. A little rabbit runs across the track at the second Lesmo, just pegging it out the way. Looked like it got away with that one. Oh, it was probably a hair, I don't know. Here's Russell's radio.
P16.
Copy that. Yeah, no worries. I think we've got a good car for tomorrow, so no drama.
Russell, happy with that?
He's 15th. Sonoda lap time deleted, track limits at the final corner. So he's back into qualifying. George Russell said he was unlikely to make it out in Q1. Yuki Tsunoda managed to improve by a tenth and a half over George Russell, but over track limits at the final corner, and he's down to 17th again.
Frustration for Tsunoda.
Big time. And Russell only 300ths ahead of Latifi. Not his best qualifying session by any means there for George Russell, but he scraped through. And Tsunoda, we didn't see it, but he's gone over track limits at the final corner. That's where they're really monitoring, and it's cost him there.
Bad for Alpines, 13th and 14th. They make it through, but not much pace. Another little stunner from Giovinazzi. 6th quickest in that session. Okay, did another run, but he was only 2 tenths slower than Lando Norris, maybe 3 tenths slower than Lando Norris in the McLaren.
A flyer from him.
Yuki, we got track limit on 11. Unfortunately, we have P17.
What? Really?
That's Tsunoda's response to getting the news.
Hopefully we'll get a replay of that one in a minute. All the cars now back in the garage. Giovinazzi, an absolute flyer from him. He's 1.3 seconds up on Robert Kubica. Now, Kubica in his second weekend with the team racing, but this is normally a more simple track to get up to speed, and that level of gap is huge for Giovinazzi to be ahead of his teammate. Great job from him, up in 6th. Really driving for his career at the moment. Brilliant qualifying last time out, 7th place. Suffered a little bit on the opening lap with getting into battles with Sainz and Alonso, which didn't work out well for him, but he's going well now. Tsunoda, track limits, turn 11. He misses the apex by a smidge, goes through the final corner. He's off track limits, yeah. Done. No complaints.
Jenny?
Sure, he'll have a complaint, whatever happens, even if he was off track limits, as you say. Just looking at Giovinazzi, had such a strong qualifying last time out as well, so his form on a Saturday is clearly, that's improved his 1 lap pace, but when it came to the race, I think disappointing. He got a puncture as well, which didn't work in his favour, but just last weekend you wouldn't have said Giovinazzi's seat was in danger, and now all of a sudden his seat's in danger. I think it's so tough to be a driver in one of those seats which is on the edge. Jack, would you have said his seat was in danger last weekend?
I think so. I feel like Giovanazzi's seat honestly has been in danger for...
ever since he occupied it, really.
Yeah, 3 years now, because he's not really been... Last weekend was the... There was one season, maybe it was the end of 19, he had a few flashes in qualifying that actually thought, oh, okay, and then kind of just about got away with it and kept his seat. And then he's fairly well looked after Raikkonen and had Raikkonen in his pocket. So Raikkonen's now retiring. But, as you say, Zandvoort was a real surprise. And today, so we'll see what he can do. And I was speaking to a team member earlier this week that said, yeah, we saw Giovinazzi's lap time in the first one. We thought, oh, okay, that's a nice sort of flash in the pan, good lap. And then he did it again in Q2, and then he did it again in Q3, and everyone was very impressed. So, yeah, we'll see what he can do. It does feel a little bit too little too late to have really shown, without wanting to... Giovinazzi's never kind of shown anything. There's not sort of one thing you can point to and go, oh, but remember that one time. Whereas a Gasly, you know, has his win here, or Stroll has a front row there, or even Russell has, you know, there's nothing really that has ever stood out from Giovinazzi, honestly. So until last weekend. So
yeah. I wonder as well the effect of not having Kimi alongside you. If your regular teammate isn't there, maybe it makes you step up a little bit. Maybe it changes the kind of way that the weekends are dressed, and maybe it suits you better to, a bit like Bottas leaving Mercedes to go to Alfa Romeo. He'll be the driver in control there, no matter who's alongside him. He'll be the one sort of dictating feedback and all of that stuff. I just wonder if that has anything to do with it too.
I don't think it's a terrible point, but I think it is when it comes to Kimi, because that was what Giovinazzi was asked, wasn't he, in the press conference yesterday? And he said, yeah, Robert talks a lot more in engineering meetings than Kimi does. So I don't think Kimi's exactly there dictating everything that's going to happen, is he? But yeah.
Well, what I wonder is...
maybe Kimi would have been 5th on the grid in Zandvoort.
Well, exactly. When there's no benchmark, because Kubica's there, no one's expecting anything from the reserve driver that steps in. And this is, we're in the first races after summer break. Have Alfa Romeo managed to unlock a bit of pace with the car that wasn't too bad in the first half, but if they've just found a few tenths, then maybe this is it. And Kimi's not had a legitimate qualifying since before the summer break in Hungary, because Spa was very wet. He also had a terrible weekend in Belgium with that crash in the pit lane in FP1. It was never really a great run for him. Then a wet qualifying and no race. So all we've had really is Zandvoort and here, where the Alfa Romeo suddenly looks like it's a top 10 car. So it's hard to know whether Raikkonen would also be somewhere near.
I mean, Raikkonen has not had good qualifying all season, I would say. Giovinazzi's been better than him all season. Just seems to be
not
on
by
point
a golf,
a little bit more.
Not by a golf.
I mean, he's usually out in the first part of qualifying, isn't he, Raikkonen, at the moment? Seems to be a little bit standard with him. But yeah, you take away a driver, put in a different driver, it alters the dynamics. It's bound to, isn't it? But drivers going out, you'll be relieved to know it's the second part of qualifying.
Indeed. So, straight out go the Red Bulls, Verstappen and Perez. Then out goes the Williams of George Russell. Hamilton out at the front of the queue as well. In that, presumably just a little bit behind his teammate Valtteri Bottas. There goes Giovinazzi out of the pit lane now. And yeah, it is Bottas who's ahead of Hamilton again. And then the Ferrari. There was a bit of work going on the side of the Ferrari, actually, of Charles Leclerc. So he has now joined the racetrack. So we'll see whether he's found any improvement.
3/10 average. Giovinazzi's been ahead of Raikkonen.
8-4
this season,
I think, in quali, isn't it? To Giovinazzi? Or am I reading that wrong?
Might be.
Might be. Yeah. So
3/10. It's a good margin.
Yeah.
Kimi's definitely not had a poor year, and he's retiring at the end of it. But the gap's obviously just massively bigger with Kubica in the car, and I think it's just when Giovinazzi's been in Q2 and sometimes Raikkonen's been out in Q1, but with Giovinazzi getting into Q3, could Raikkonen be knocking on the door of that as well? Possibly, but you never know when you have a new teammate.
12 minutes to go. Max Verstappen making his way towards the Parabolica now. First across the line, though, Jenny, is going to be Sergio Perez.
Yeah, just having a look at the drivers going out first. As you say, Perez leads for Verstappen and Bottas leads for Hamilton. So definitely the team's looking to try and utilise the tow if they can and utilise their sort of so-called second drivers to help their championship rivals, I suppose.
Indeed. And you just, yeah. I mean, if you were going to do... So based on this, when would you, based on this, sorry, I'm just having a lot of thoughts right now. Based on this, I would anticipate Verstappen is not going to take an engine penalty, right? Because otherwise you would have Verstappen tow Perez if he's going to be starting from the back of the grid. And actually, surely a sprint weekend is a great weekend to take an engine penalty because you can make up some places during the sprint and then have a better grid position for the race.
Well, when do you not
take the penalty?
That's what I was thinking. Do you take the penalty for the Sunday race, the Grand Prix, presumably?
Yeah,
because the sprint is just a sprint.
It's just qualifying. You can't take a grid penalty for qualifying.
Exactly. So
Very
I think
true.
you then run the sprint normally, but then take your grid drop for Sunday. I don't know if this one is the best race for Red Bull to take the penalty because the pace that they've got, I don't know if they're charging back through the field for a podium.
Yeah.
Whereas if they take one on a track they're very strong at, maybe they could win otherwise, but then at least get back to a podium. So it's a really tough one. In previous years, yes, because they weren't in championship contention, but they need to be there to collect the points, even if maybe they can't beat Mercedes this weekend. They can't afford to lose 25 points to Hamilton.
They're nowhere near. Hamilton across the line does a 1 minute 19.9. Max Verstappen does a 1 minute 20.7.
He's matched by Giovinazzi.
Wow, Giovinazzi goes fourth quickest in the Alfa Romeo. Lance Stroll goes fifth. Gasly goes third, ahead of the Red Bull of Max Verstappen. Our Red Bull really struggling a little here. Sainz across the line. Ricciardo goes third now. Verstappen is shuffled down to 5th quickest. Still got Norris to come across the line. Out of the final corner he comes, and he goes third now, ahead of his teammate Daniel Ricciardo. So much stronger showing from Ricciardo this weekend. But it's Mercedes, McLaren. And Norris is only 4 tenths away from Lewis Hamilton. 5th is Pierre Gasly, 6th is Verstappen, Giovinazzi, Stroll, Leclerc and Perez the top 10. Ocon, Vettel, Sainz, Russell and Alonso the 15, although Alonso hasn't set a lap time yet.
Perez only 200ths inside the top 10, ahead of Esteban Ocon. Red Bull struggling. 6th and 10th. Verstappen's only, 4 tenths ahead of Ocon. Everyone on the soft tyres is Q2, but with the sprint, there's a free tyre choice for the race tomorrow, and then the Grand Prix. So that doesn't come into play. Everyone's on the soft tyres, and Red Bull are not quick.
Goodness me. Jenny?
Another driver who's not particularly quick at the moment is Charles Leclerc, and I believe that they've got an issue with that car. They sent him out anyway. They're going to have a closer look before they'll tell us anything. Yeah, certainly seems to be a problem for them.
Well, Leclerc's 9th and Sainz is 13th after those first runs. He's on track and getting back to the pits. Here's his radio.
Yeah, I still have the problem, but now it's not consistent anymore. It's in the middle of the corners. I've got no engine braking, big engine braking, and it's not very consistent.
That sounds worse then for Charles Leclerc. He's still got the problem, and now it's more inconsistent, so you almost can't drive around it because you don't know when the problem's going to happen.
And the engine braking is affecting the balance so much as well. If you suddenly get a load of engine braking, you basically go to more of an oversteer balance. You lose a load of engine braking, you're understeering into the corners. That's through the whole phase where you're not on throttle, basically. So you brake down the gears, and then is the overrun amount. You have more overrun, and it helps to turn the car, basically. But if it's inconsistent, then Leclerc is doing well to drive around it, and he is in the top 10 still. He's ahead of Sergio Perez, and he's ahead of Carlos Sainz.
There's probably a mathematical study here somewhere, but I swear no team has as many breakdowns at the start of qualifying than Ferrari. I swear they're always breaking down just at the start of quali when it's really quite crucial. Jenny?
So I finally got confirmation that Bottas is going to take a new power unit. He's already got it in the car this weekend, so that's not in conformity, as they say, with the rules, which means he will take a engine penalty. He's got a full new set in the car of all the different components, so he will start from the back of the grid.
Okay, on the Sunday.
Sunday's race, yes.
Great. Well, not great for Bottas, but interesting. Fascinated to see what he can do, because famously last year he made zero progress during the Grand Prix.
He's in a really quick car. The Mercedes is flying. So presumably the team are hoping that he can take that penalty and get right back in amongst the action. But based on last year, you're not holding your breath, are you? If he could, then that would be huge. And Bottas was another one that had a big crash in at Imola, did a lot of damage there. And obviously the team feeling they need to take another engine, and are doing it now. It's going to be a brilliant chance for the likes of a McLaren or a Ferrari to get a result here. Pierre Gasly going well again. If Red Bull are not looking strong, which they're not right now, possibly with the threat of an engine penalty for Verstappen at some point as well, particularly if he doesn't qualify that well, that will become more appealing for them. Bottas then starting from the back. Could be like last year, this race, where you got Hamilton against everyone, and it was only one mistake from Hamilton or Pete Bonington to call him in that then put him at the back, and you've got a shock winner.
The one positive that there is with the sprint weekend is that Bottas can pick up a point or two tomorrow from the sprint and then start at the back of the grid and work his way through.
Yep. That's regardless of having a grid penalty or not, though, isn't it? You're taking that point.
Yeah, that's true.
It doesn't make a difference if you're taking a grid penalty or not.
Basically nothing makes a difference. 5 minutes to go. The order is Hamilton, Bottas, Norris, Ricciardo, Gasly, the top 5. Verstappen, Giovinazzi, Stroll, Leclerc and Perez, the top 10. Ocon, Vettel, Sainz, Russell. Alonso didn't set a lap time in the
turn
end.
one.
Okay.
He had a big slipstream from Verstappen, launched into a flying lap, and then locked up, went straight across the chicane and nearly ran into Sergio Perez on the exit. Perez was trying to let him through and was on the wrong part of the track, not expecting Alonso to be flying over the curbs. All fine, but not for Alonso. He's not done a time and he's under pressure.
Who were the big hitters in terms of blocking in Q1? Remind me.
Leclerc was one. Leclerc blocked Gasly pretty badly. Alonso blocked Verstappen pretty badly. Now, Verstappen and Leclerc are still in qualifying. Maybe as a result of them not being out of Q1, they might get away with it.
And Mercedes are looking very strong at the moment. We're only in the second part of qualifying, but Hamilton and Bottas are first and second quickest. Max Verstappen in the Red Bull, the championship leader by 3 points, doesn't seem to have a huge amount of pace. He's down in 6th position, behind both of the McLarens of Lando Norris and Daniel Ricciardo, and the AlphaTauri of Pierre Gasly. The grid won't be set for another 20 minutes or so, but early indications are Verstappen might be in a little bit of trouble here. We've got full commentary on the BBC Sport website and app. Good stuff from Ricciardo.
Look, he's stronger at the moment, isn't he? Better day so far. He was behind Norris in Q1, but Norris had to improve on the second set of tyres, whereas Ricciardo had the luxury of coming straight back into the pits at the end. Couple of tenths down, less than 1 tenth down on his teammate at the moment in Q2, though. Looking good.
I think this is the sort of track that at the beginning of the season, I would have said McLaren, which was going well at the end of last year with a Mercedes power unit in it. Mercedes, I think, still having a slightly dominant power unit. Certainly, it looks like it at this circuit. They kind of should be there. That's, to me, what it feels like. And it's brilliant that they are, but I feel like that's where they should be around here.
Now, Red Bull have had to go out on another new set of soft tyres here. Mercedes don't. They're going out on a set of used tyres. And Red Bull going out on a set of new. But it maybe doesn't even matter because Verstappen doesn't look to be in any contention for pole.
Well, I wonder if Red Bull might have done a set of used tyres at some point already.
Unbelievable what they are doing here. Unbelievable.
And Verstappen then just blasts past everyone on pit lane exit. Was that fine? Was that allowed? To me, it looked as though he went 2 wheels over the white line on the right-hand side.
On the right-hand side.
So
now,
maybe that's fine.
On the left-hand side, it's definitely not. You're not allowed to cross the white line on the left. On the right-hand side...
That's crazy. Everyone's backing up.
Hamilton saying everyone's backing up.
So that was the same thoughts as Verstappen, who was released just behind Lewis Hamilton, who then did all the backing up as well. Hamilton was released... Well, everyone was going side by side down the pit lane then. Vettel was released right into the path of Hamilton. Then Stroll nearly got in the mix as well.
There was 3 wide him in the pit lane at one point.
Yeah, everyone just desperate for a bit of their own space. Vettel and Hamilton almost colliding. Then Verstappen having to completely come to a halt because of that. I think that's what the two championship contenders were actually talking about. It was in the pit lane. And then everyone else pouring out as soon as Hamilton and Vettel slow because they've created a gap and everyone sees it and goes.
Right, 90 seconds to go. Everybody on their outlap now. And the 2 McLarens are the 2 at the back of the queue, with Ricciardo leading Norris around. Bottas is going to be the first driver across the line. And again, this makes sense now why Bottas is happy to go out first and almost get rid of the kerfuffle of not wanting to be first out, because it doesn't really matter for Bottas hugely, although of course he does still want a good grid position for the sprint tomorrow. And a minute to go. Bottas starts his flying lap down towards the first corner. Through at the moment would be Hamilton, Bottas, Norris, Ricciardo, Gasly, Verstappen, Giovinazzi, Stroll, Leclerc and Perez. Eliminated would be Ocon, Vettel, Sainz, Russell and Alonso. Here we go. Through the first sector comes Perez. He's managed to improve. Verstappen has managed to improve in sector 1 as well, and is actually only fractionally slower than Ricciardo, who's got the fastest first sector of anyone. Giovinazzi, the Italian driver, coming through the second Lesmo corner and heading down towards Ascari now. And Verstappen's first sector is quicker than Gasly and Stroll and Perez and Ocon, so it's a bit more like it for the Dutchman. Giovinazzi turns into Ascari, half a second away from Hamilton after the first 2 sectors. And everyone else is improving, but not exactly setting the times alive. Norris and Ricciardo are going to be the last two across the line. Here comes Giovinazzi through the final corner now in the white and red Alfa Romeo. Across the line he comes. Bottas finishes the session's second quickest. Then it's Giovinazzi 7th. Perez across the line now, and it's 8th place for Sergio Perez. Verstappen goes 3rd. Bit more like it for the Dutchman, although he's still 3/10 away from Lewis Hamilton on a second run. Now it is Esteban Ocon across the line in the Alpine, and not much pace for Alpine. 11th and 12th. Neither Alpine are going to be through. Ferrari of Carlos Sainz goes 8th, so Sebastian Vettel's on the bubble. It's going to be Vettel or Leclerc pretty much to get eliminated. Here comes Leclerc in the Ferrari out of the final corner. Leclerc goes up into 9th, Perez in 10th, and then it's the two Aston Martins, Vettel 11th, Stroll 12th, the two Alpines, Alonso 13th, Ocon 14th, and Russell 15th. It's like 2 by 2 this qualifying session.
Lando Norris just up to 3rd right at the end there. Fastest first sector of anyone, and he's only 1/10 away from the lap of Hamilton. So Norris quick, and he's genuinely gone ahead of Max Verstappen by 10th and a half. Perez only just made it through, 6/10 away from his teammate. Sergio Perez through by the skin of his teeth in 10th position. Fairly predictable bottom 5 from that one, I'd say.
It's all quite 2 by 2, isn't it, at the moment here? Because you had the two Hasses, the two sort of Williamses, and then your Tsunoda out in Q1. The Aston Martins and Alpines haven't looked quick, along with the Williams of Russell. It's pretty bog standard.
Well, another great job from Giovinazzi, 7th place and through. Pierre Gasly looking strong in the AlphaTauri. Ferrari's both nicking through. Leclerc's done a good job, considering we've heard all about the issues he's having from the cockpit. Engine braking woes and lack of consistency with it. He was through in 9th, basically matching the lap time of his teammate, Carlos Sainz.
I'm sorry, I think I had a bit in turn 6. Maybe I took it a little bit too easy for the traffic. Not much, but maybe a couple of hundreds.
Vettel frustrated, but it's one of those where I always think this when Vettel just misses out on Q3. But Q3 he'd probably be 10th quickest. And he's starting in 11th anyway, so it doesn't really matter.
No free tyre choice, though, I suppose, is the interesting one. If you're P11, normally you've got a little bit of hope of redemption because you start on a different strategy. You can't do that here. I think you'll either go one way or the other. You can't get an advantage from that, so that'll probably be disappointing to him. And just having a think about Charles Leclerc, he has managed to get through. I don't quite know how. Maybe the electronics or the system, whatever's going wrong for him, has sorted itself out and it's now not a problem. But if it is something that is more of a gremlin that looks to be an issue going through to the races, they're in Parc Fermé now. They can't change anything unless they take a penalty. So let's hope for his sake and Ferrari's sake that it's something that can just be fixed by the click of a computer button and nothing else.
Well, he's never struggled for pace, particularly in this qualifying. He's not happy with the car, but we've been hearing all these radio messages. The overrun on the engine, basically, when he's off the throttle, as he hits the brakes, the engine's got some inherent overrun on it that's helping to slow the car down. And that's what's coming in inconsistently, and it'll be a subtlety rather than anything crazy that will go on, which would cause him to go over the chicanes and basically be off the track. So it'll be a real subtlety to the handling of the car. And despite that, he's always looked similar on pace to his teammate. So he's getting by okay, basically, for now. Could be a software thing for Ferrari to try and have a look at, rather than anything on the hardware side of the engine overnight. They'll obviously be trying to diagnose it the whole time to get it as best it can be for this Q3 session, and if not, then at least for the race tomorrow. But he's getting by okay, basically, with it.
It's getting quite dark in Italy. Sun's still quite high in the sky. It's 6:45, just north of Milan, and very much the sort of autumnal evening starting to set in. Some of the leaves in the Royal Park,
Delayed
some
start.
of the trees beginning to brown.
Wouldn't be looking clever, would it?
No.
Like if we lost an hour.
I think sunset's in an hour.
Yeah, it wouldn't be that. Or a gloomy day. This whole sprint format of a Friday evening qualifying, the height of European summer at Silverstone, it was okay when it was getting dark at 9 p.m.
10:30. Height of summer, I reckon. It's getting dark.
Could be. Don't start that late.
Jenny.
Definitely don't stay up that late anymore. So the melee that was the pit lane at the last part of that qualifying session is going to be investigated after qualifying. I don't know what they'll do, just slap everybody on the wrist and say don't do that again. Could be a couple of fines bouncing around, I suppose. But it did get pretty hairy down there. At one point, the Alpine #1 mechanic had to jump out the way of a car coming towards him. A couple of people have suggested maybe it's time to... We have this conversation every time we go to Monza, but a one-lap dash, something specific that's a little bit more controlled, but yet still exciting.
Well, presumably, next year, the slipstreaming thing shouldn't be that much of a big deal, right? If we use it, because was 2016 was it raining? Or was that 17?
No, 17 was
so
raining.
So 16 was slipstream all important, and we had this.
You still wanted
kind
a
of
bit of slipstream. It wasn't as important as now, but you still wanted it.
But now it's carnage.
Now it's carnage. The cars are draggier than they were with the basically bigger bodies and certainly bigger wings than they used to be. They used to be skinnier and cutting a smaller hole through the air. So the bigger the cars get and the chunkier the wings get, the bigger the slipstream effect is. They're still looking pretty chunky for next year.
That's true.
They're still heavy as well.
And they've still got the hybrid engines in, haven't they?
They've still got the hybrid engines, so I think it will still be irrelevant. So what they're trying to do is reduce the effect of the dirty air, so it'll go even more towards the slipstream.
Yeah, very true. Right, final part of qualifying to get underway in a minute.
I don't think anyone will get in grid drop trouble for that pit lane incident that is being investigated.
It was all quite slow and nothing was particularly dangerous.
Well, I think Vettel, the Aston Martin release was not very good.
Unsafe release.
Yeah, I think that was an unsafe release. Straight into the path of Hamilton, who had to come to a complete stop in the fast lane. That's an unsafe release. There was another one, was it Alpine, the next car ahead, that then got a little bit stuck in there, but maybe they'll say that was because there was two cars stationary in the pit lane, so that one could be argued. But I think the Vettel one, Aston Martin can be expecting, I would say, a fine for that. I don't see that being a grid drop. I'm all for a one-shot quali. I'm all for a one-shot quali at specific events. Monza's one of them. Monza, Monaco, one-shot quali. Anywhere where you get this chaos and you can't run a normal qualifying session, let's mix it up once in a while. Be cool.
Don't disagree. Gabby can confirm that the Silverstone sunset after qualifying was about 10 p.m. because she was still in the park and ride queue. At 10 p.m.
Was Silverstone summer solstice weekend? Apparently not by a month. No. 10 p.m. You're not getting
21st
10 p.m.
of June. 21st of June was the summer solstice.
Yeah, I know which day the summer solstice was.
Oh, it was like the middle of July.
I can't remember which day Silverstone was. Is the issue?
It's always the middle of July. Well, apart
not
from
next year,
is it?
Yeah. It's very summer solstice next year.
It is not too far away.
But 10 p.m. I don't think you're getting that in July. Yeah, I think you're happy with a 9. Happy with a 9.
I'm very happy. Well, no, but Gabby's literally saying it was 10 p.m. He's saying Gabby is not telling the truth.
It might be a bit of a porky.
Wow, okay. I've never called our listeners liars. I've called them stupid on air, but I've never called them liars. I'm joking. We love you all. We love you all. Oh, yeah, it was Stu G that I put in his place last week with his rubbish stat. 11 minutes to go. Everybody now out on circuit. And again, I think the reason we won't get the shenanigans here is because Bottas can just go out first in the queue. Everyone then goes out behind. Bottas is getting his pen, and even if he's not getting his pen, he's got to drag Hamilton anyway. He'll start second on the grid. There we go. I think that was part of the reason we're not going to get the sort of the famous last words, but the shenanigans of 2018 where Hülkenberg accidentally locked up.
And it works
the first
perfectly.
chicane.
It works perfectly for Mercedes now, because Hamilton is surely going to be putting this on pole. He's got such pace in that car. The one thing that would get in the way for Hamilton is a really messy qualifying session where people don't get clear laps.
Yeah.
If Bottas can just tow him round, everyone then gets the same sort of slipstream, then it's happy days all round, really, because inherent pace, Mercedes are there.
Right, here comes Valtteri Bottas then through the final corner. I mean, without wanting to undersell it, have we even got a battle for pole position?
Let's find out.
Yeah, here comes Bottas across the line with no slipstream, charging down towards the first corner. Antonio Giovinazzi still in the pits, so he's not going out on a used set. Maybe we'll take that little window when everybody's coming back into the pit lane to go for it. Hamilton now starting his flying lap. That's the sound you can hear of the onboard camera as he comes through Curva Grande. Bottas' first sector is a couple of tenths slower than what Norris managed, and he's very wide coming through the Roger chicane.
Picking up a bit of gravel. Suddenly it's not going to be maybe so clever to be following your teammate really closely. Hamilton's through there though, okay. But he did kick up a bit of gravel on the exit of the second chicane there, Bottas.
Hamilton quicker than Bottas through the first sector by almost a tenth. Verstappen similar. Ricciardo fastest in sector 1. Sainz has gone quicker than or similar to Bottas in the middle sector. Norris now goes quickest in sector 1. Hamilton's middle sector is quick as well, a couple of tenths clear of Bottas. How close can the McLarens get to the Mercedes here?
Well, Verstappen's quicker than Hamilton through 2 sectors, Jack. Verstappen's just suddenly turning up here, and through 2 sectors, he and Hamilton are neck and neck.
Here comes Bottas across the line then. Benchmark lap is a 1 minute 20.388, 3 tenths slower than he managed in Q2. Hamilton across the line does a 1 minute 19.949. That's slower than he managed in Q2. Gasly goes 3rd quickest. Perez goes 4th quickest. Here comes Max Verstappen, splits the Mercedes. A 1 minute 19.966, just a 100th slower than Hamilton.
What about Lando Norris? Norris is flying as well. He's right in the mix through 2 sectors.
Ricciardo goes 3rd. Norris follows his teammate and also goes 3rd. So suddenly Bottas is shuffled down to 5th position. 0.017 between Hamilton and Verstappen. Less than a tenth of a second separating Hamilton, Verstappen and Norris. But the Mercedes didn't improve in their second run.
No, maybe that was because Bottas kicked up the gravel second chicane and Hamilton was the first car to go over that gravel and possibly lost a little bit of traction exiting the chicane because of that. Might explain why they didn't pick up any pace. There's only a couple of hundredths Verstappen was away, not even a couple of hundredths, and Norris is half a tenth from pole position at this stage. They've all got one more flying lap. It's super tight between the 3, and Ricciardo 3 tenths down is in 4th and looking to match his best qualifying of the year.
7 minutes to go. Hamilton, Verstappen, Norris, Ricciardo, Bottas the top 5, Gasly, Leclerc, Sainz and Perez, the 9 drivers to have set at lap time, Jenny.
Yeah, Giovinazzi still in the pit lane at the moment. He's not gone out to set his 1 flying lap that he'll get. But I can tell you, Perez did go out, and he was the only driver to be on a used set of soft tyres. So probably lost a little bit of time through that. He'll be hoping, obviously, when they slot on some new tyres, he can go a little bit fast.
He's going to have to get close to Verstappen to be at the sharp end, really, because Verstappen has got Norris for company. Then Ricciardo, Bottas, Gasly are not that far away. Gasly's within half a second of Verstappen. So Perez is going to have to do some on that second set of tyres to get in the top 5 or 6, really, and that's assuming no one else improves.
Norris and Ricciardo were doing personal bests on their in-lap. Or maybe that was another timing glitch. It was another timing glitch.
Wouldn't have thought that would be the case in the slightest.
No.
So it's suddenly super tight.
Yeah.
Verstappen out of nowhere. We were thinking, is this going to be an absolute walkover for Mercedes, given all the whole day they've been super quick. And finally, Verstappen in Q3 has put in a great lap and got so close to that pole position. The crucial thing is, it's not the pole position, is it? It's the fastest qualifier. And remember Silverstone, he got on the front row and it was enough for him to take pole position by winning the sprint. If you start 1st or 2nd, this time with 2 opportunities at a race start, with the sprint tomorrow and the Grand Prix on Sunday, he's got an opportunity here, Verstappen, with that first lap. He needs to make sure that neither McLaren gets ahead, and obviously he'll be aiming to take pole away from, or fastest qualifier away from Hamilton here. But that's a really solid benchmark for Verstappen to get himself back in the mix. I think Red Bull would have been a bit worried that they might have ended up this one sort of 5th place, given how they've been through the day so far.
Yeah, they did look in trouble, didn't they? Thank you for those of you getting in touch. Hashtag BBCF1. Andrew and I think Steg mentioned it as well. 9:15 was the sunset after F1 sprint, but twilight lasted until 10 p.m.
Yeah, I told you, it was sunset at 9 o'clock.
Yeah, 9:15.
Give or take 9.
Right, 5 minutes to go. Hamilton on provisional pole position. Verstappen second, Norris third. Ricciardo fourth, Bottas fifth. Gasly, Leclerc, Sainz, Perez, the 9 drivers to have set the lap time. Giovinazzi didn't go out and hasn't yet gone out, so he's just going for... And it was actually stupid of me to suggest earlier on, wasn't it, that he'll just go out by himself when the track's clear, because that's the last thing he'll want to do. Jenny?
Yeah, you presumably want the tow around here as much as you possibly can. So especially if you're a lone duck and your teammate hasn't made it through, such as the likes of Giovinazzi, Gasly. I think those are the only 2 who don't have their teammates alongside them to help them. So yeah, you're going to want to be in the queue. You're going to want to take a spot and see if you can get a decent tow. Just speaking to the guys, they say ideal tow is around 6 or 7 seconds here.
Do Mercedes keep Bottas as the first car to go out now? Bottas is 5th. Yes, he has a grid drop for Sunday, but he doesn't have a grid drop for the sprint. Surely they want him to get on the front row now and be
interesting,
stopping at least Verstappen from attacking Hamilton in the sprint. I don't think they can afford to let him just go out first now and not have a tow, because it's worth a significant amount of time, which right now he needs.
So what time is it? Are we saying it's shenanigan o'clock?
We're getting there, 9:15.
Right, 3.5 minutes on the clock. Verstappen firing up. Blankets come off, car gets lowered. Blankets go back on briefly, as everybody now waits. Verstappen, now Perez and Verstappen are going out, so are they doing the Mercedes role by the looks of things? Perez is going out ahead of Verstappen.
I think they've gone so early that no one has anticipated the Red Bulls going. Now Bottas rolls out of the pits, then Hamilton.
But they can catch up with them quite quickly, can't they?
Well, it depends how quick they do the outlap. Now everyone else goes, but actually the Mercedes are now at the back of the queue. So there's the Red Bulls at the front, and now there's a bit of a gap. I think it's Gasly that's gone out behind the Red Bulls. Then there's a gap from the 3rd car, which is Gasly, to the 4th car, who is leading round the rest of the field. Is it Giovinazzi or possibly the Ferrari of Carlos Sainz?
It's Sainz. Interesting. Okay, so Perez is being fully sacrificed here, right?
Basically, yeah. For optimal chance for Verstappen to get the perfect tow and not be held up at the back of the queue. Bottas now is going to have a tow. So he's in slipstream range of many a car ahead. Mercedes are pretty much at the back of the field now. So we've got Red Bull attacking from the front, Mercedes now with a 2-pronged attack. Bottas back in the fight really from the back. Perez is going to struggle with no tow. He's going to be the first car round, and his job now is purely do a fast enough lap to stay clear of Verstappen and give him the slipstream all the way around the circuit.
So Perez will be first out then. Verstappen following him. Then it's Gasly. They're coming through the Ascari chicane, the left, right, left flick, and then charging down towards the Parabolica. And Perez starts to get up to speed. Lando Norris, by the way, is going to be the last driver to come across the line. He left the pit lane after the Mercedes. What can Verstappen do? He comes now into the final right-hander at the Parabolica, turns in, gets on the power, the setting sun almost getting in his eyes as it falls down between the trees. And Verstappen comes across the line now to start his flying lap. Up to 206 miles an hour before he gets onto the brakes into the first corner. Hooks it up nice and neatly. Then on the power. And we'll get his first sector split as he comes through Curva Grande and down towards the Variante della Roggia. Looks beautiful, Monza at the moment, in the setting sun. The track almost golden as Verstappen brakes and swings into the Roggia chicane. His first sector is not really worth writing home about at the moment. Giovinazzi's done a quicker first sector than Verstappen.
Yeah, Verstappen's lost a tenth or two compared to his best already. So he's got something to work up in the middle sector, right on the edge of the track. Lesmo 2 on the exit, but that looked okay. He was very quickly to the throttle. But again, no improvement in the middle sector. Verstappen is not improving. Gasly's flying.
Bottas has done the fastest first sector of anyone quicker than Lewis Hamilton, quicker than Ricciardo, quicker than Norris. As you say, Gasly's middle sector, race winner here last year. Very strong indeed. They're coming down to the final couple of corners. And Perez accelerates out across the line. He's going to be the first driver to cut the timing beam. And Sergio Perez goes 8th quickest. Not a great lap. Verstappen only goes 2nd. Doesn't improve. Pierre Gasly remains in 5th place. Valtteri Bottas quickest in Sector 1, quickest in Sector 2. It could be the front of the grid for tomorrow's sprint here for Valtteri Bottas. They're coming down the back straight now. Bottas compared to Hamilton is about 1/10 of a second up, maybe a smidgen more. Through the final corner at the Parabolica. Ricciardo goes across the line 3rd. Bottas goes to the top of the times. Valtteri Bottas goes quickest. Can Hamilton beat it? No. What can Lando Norris do out of the final corner? He goes 4th ahead of his teammate Daniel Ricciardo, but it's a Mercedes front row lockout. Bottas ahead of Hamilton by less than 1/10 of a second. Verstappen, crucially for him, getting ahead of Lando Norris by 0.02 of a second. Ricciardo slower than Norris by 0.06 of a second. Gasly 6th, Sainz 7th, Leclerc 8th, Perez 9th, Giovinazzi 10th. Bottas at the front of the field. Great lap from Valtteri Bottas, that.
Wow, where did that come from?
And that's pole position, sir.
Oh, yes! Boom. Thanks.
Bravo.
Technically isn't pole position, but we take your point.
What an effort from Bottas.
Yeah.
He didn't have the slipstream first run. Second run he did, and he put the lap together beautifully. Fastest through the first 2 sectors. It was actually Daniel Ricciardo put his lap together with a brilliant final sector, the fastest of anyone. He's up to 5th, matching Norris 0.06 behind his teammate. But yeah, Bottas one shot at it, and he's just given Mercedes all manner of headaches there, getting ahead of Lewis Hamilton for the sprint tomorrow. Hamilton 2nd, Verstappen crucially stayed ahead of both McLarens only by a smidgen. 200ths clear of Norris, 300ths clear of Ricciardo. Could have easily been 5th on the grid on the sprint for Verstappen. He didn't improve. He was the only one in that second run who didn't improve. So Red Bull sacrificed Perez for nothing there at the end. And, well, he's got a fight still tomorrow, though, by virtue of those 100ths ahead of the McLarens.
So Valtteri Bottas will start on provisional pole position well, no, he will start on, this thing. He will start at the front of the grid for the sprint.
He's the fastest qualifier.
Yeah, and he will start